behind us. It's nice.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole for the Village of Kerry for Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 to order with roll call, please.
Weinhammer,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Walrith,
Here.
Cavelli, here, Collier,
Here.
Duda,
Here. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now moving to public comments. Does anybody have anything they would like to say to the Committee of the Whole? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comments at 6:10. Thank you. Moving into a discussion regarding Kerry Cemetery. I believe Courtney has taken this one for us.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight we are discussing the Kerry Cemetery and the possible closure for future purchases. The Kerry Cemetery dates back to the 1800s, and the village actually took over the day-to-day operations in the early 2000s. Since that time, we've had a few notable challenges, including lack of purchase records, such as deeds, unreliable mapping documentation, as well as unknown potter's graves. So staff at this time is recommending closing the Kerry Cemetery for future purchases.
Mayor, board too, and I would just add, as someone that has done the job of what Courtney is doing right now and managing the cemetery, it is a challenge. The folks that, managed this previously did a great job. As Courtney had mentioned, there was a cemetery board. Even before that, there was a resident by the name of Betty Freeman who did a phenomenal job of maintaining the cemetery. The challenge, though, is, when we go back to the 1800s, there weren't computers back then, and there were a lot of handwritten notes. It makes it a little bit more difficult for us to go through that, compare it to the notes that we have within the computer. We've done the best that we can. I don't think it should be our goal to maximize the cemetery to its full capacity. We're getting fuller. We've had some challenges here recently that Courtney's done a great job of working through, and I don't want to, set us up for failure in the future. And so that's why the recommendation here from staff, you heard from Courtney, is our recommendation is to close it for new purchases. Anyone that has an existing deed or has made recent purchases here will still honor that, but there wouldn't be any new purchases, and that's what we're proposing tonight.
Any comments or questions from the board?
I know Jake and I had talked about this extensively in the past, so no, I'm good with this.
And I just think that I would agree 100% with the assessment that when we don't have the proper documentation, it's not in our best interest or in future residents' interest to say that we're going to do something that may not come to fruition. So until something were ever to change, then I agree that this is what we need to do.
Trustee Walworth, any comments?
I guess the question I would have is what is the open lot situation at the moment, and is there any potential future of people coming back? You start thinking about statutes of limitations, when people would come back, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, trying to make a claim on one of these empty lots, and how many of those potential ones are out there?
Well, I think a part of the challenge that we've had, and Jake can probably articulate this a little bit more, is that we have had people come forward with deeds that we have no documentation on. There's nothing, this was handwritten on a piece of paper, and it's less than official looking. We can't really realize that. And, we had a recent incident where there was a confusion about grave sites, and that we shouldn't have to deal with that and put a family into a situation like that. I believe the cemetery is probably 75% full I would imagine, just by walking through it and just seeing the headstones, and that's it, if not even more. So we would have the capability, in my opinion, that in the event that we are forced into a situation where somebody comes forth, we would have an ample spot to use for that.
We have no idea of the extent outstanding deeds right now, no. Really?
Courtney, can you chime in on that a little bit about, because you've got the records and you've got the map in there. Do you know approximately how many grave sites that we may have?
Or that we're aware of.
So based on our records, there are about 100 spots that are reserved or sold.
Right.
However, like we've talked about, some people have come forward with documentation and it just wasn't with our records, so there could be more out there.
Yeah. So I think that to err on the side of caution, and really it's a lot for staff to manage and to go through these things to make sure that we're fulfilling our obligation. And I think at this time that there would be enough space at the cemetery in the event that somebody comes forth that we would be able to accommodate them at that time. It's not like it's a brand new cemetery. It's from the 1800s.
All right.
So
Another question that you had, Trustee Walrath, about if people come forward in 7 or 8 years, plus or minus. I mean, my intent with this is that we would still honor that if someone came forward and we could substantiate it in some way of, yes, your family purchased this in 1950, that we would honor that. And the challenge, though, is that we just don't know how many of those are out there.
And that, Jake, that's exactly where I was leading with that point is if we have this buffer, if this allows us that buffer, the worst case scenario I could see would be us having to say no. And that's a situation if we were to close it to anything new right now, and we leave ourselves that buffer, it's a much lower chance of us having to do that.
right.
Yep.
Trustee Collier, any comments on this?
I agree.
Yeah,
too.
we've talked about it. Yeah.
Close it.
I can only imagine what Trustee Dudek has to say about this.
Been talked about many times before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Old business.
Okay. Well,
I appreciate the work that Courtney's done on this. It's not anything that, we go to school for, the folks that are here at the village. And so she's worked through some challenging situations out there.
Trustee Cavelli, do you have any comments on this?
I'm good with closing it. I just have a question. Could you, or would you ever consider putting it out for public notice that if you have these deeds, that you have so long to come forward, so you're not dealing with it, let's say 5 or 7 years down the road, like that was just brought up. Could you put that timeline in there? And so if someone were to come back later or put out public notice, there was no response, we closed it at this time. That might be a great question. I don't know. If it's something of interest.
If the board was open to that, if we wanted to put a time frame on it.
Well, how would we do that? How would we notice the public to say, if you've got a deed to our cemetery, you come forth so we know this, or?
At least you can get records up to
Yeah.
date possibly on the computer.
I would want, is Attorney Euler, were you able to hear that conversation? I mean, if we have a deed, if someone's purchased,
Concern.
I mean, essentially purchased a property, would we have the right to do that?
Well, yes, you mean those that have already purchased or those that would still be allowed to purchase through the window?
Those that already have purchased.
Yes, I think that notice, or at least that proposal, is a reasonable one for dealing with the operations you want to put in place now, close the future purchases. We've been dealing with these on a case-by-case basis as they come in, and they're all a little idiosyncratic. They're all a little bit different. Some based on the fact that we don't have accurate records, and we have partial records from the individuals that own plots in the graveyard. So I think we'd still be faced with dealing with most of these on an individual basis, even if we close the land to future sales.
So, commenting on that, and given the numerous times this has been discussed previously, I guess I think Trustee Cavelli's observation is a good one, and I think we probably should consider some sort of public notice. Mm-hmm. But I also think it might be a good idea to put it on our website so that we're going to let people know that we're closing new sales effective immediately, and maybe just leave it on there for 90 days or even the rest of the year. We've waited, years to do this. What's another 6 months?
Right.
Just to
Well, as
let
long as
people
we
know to
make a
come.
commitment to
Yeah.
stop selling, we're not going to
Right.
be.
Yeah,
I agree.
but stop selling immediately. Yeah,
Right,
just
but
a
it is-
notification piece.
But it is nice to have the possibility of knowing the majority of people coming forward saying, yes, I have one, yes, I haven't. So we know, hey, we've got 75 people that have contacted us that we know we need to honor at some point. That still, it's not going to probably cover everybody. Someone could have moved out of town, may not get a notice in the newspaper, but we're at least trying to address as much as we can.
So within that notice, obviously mentioning that we're going to close for future sales.
Correct.
Immediately, I would imagine. And then asking people to come forth. If you look in your records, make sure you've got your deeds in line so that, you know, we can update it, make sure that our records are correlating. Is that fair? Is everybody on the same page with that?
I just have a question. So we are not going to deny people, like close it down for people who have deeds in the future, though. We're still going to leave it open. We're just asking people to come forward. Correct.
Right. I mean, from now on, we're not going to sell any more deeds to it. So anybody that's got a deed and come forth, we'll make sure that it aligns with the, you know, on the deeds, it shows the exact location of the plot. So we'll be able to kind of figure that out. And with Courtney's help, she's done a great job with this as it is. And it's, it'll be something to do, but that's something, you good with that, Jake? Okay.
Great.
Any other comments or questions regarding the closure of our cemetery?
One more question for Attorney Euler. Scott, and I don't need an answer right now, but if you have it, I take it. Would we need a resolution from the board for this at the village board level?
No, if we're simply gathering information, you mean to close it to future sales?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a board action.
Yeah.
The action referenced by Trustee Cavelli can be accomplished by staff notifying as best the village can that you're gathering as much information as you can in anticipation of closing the land for future sales, but you'd like to improve your records to the extent possible. That's just an administrative action.
Okay.
Good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Ba-dum-bum. Yeah. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Roll call, please. Courtney?
Ballman,
Yes.
Weinheimer,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Stanifat,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Duda.
Yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Easy peasy.